President Tinubu inaugurates planning committee for National Youth Conference.
We have the great opportunity of advancing the development of this country. It's all in your hand.
Renewed Hope initiative impacts lives in Kogi State as food distribution reaches vulnerable citizens.
Under Renewed Hope Initiative Economic Empowerment Program, we are giving a grant of 200,000 naira for 250 persons with disability.
Troops of Operation Adinkai rescued 75% at Sambisa Forest.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss guidelines for organ and tissue transplantation in Nigeria, plus good governance and development in Bayelsa State.
All right, so we hear the federal government says it is taking a bold step in shaping Nigeria's healthcare future. And this time, it's focusing on organ and tissue transplantation.
Well, it's a crucial move, Claire. Imagine a system where organ donations and transplants are not just possible, but also ethical, safe, and transparent. That's the vision behind the new standards and guidelines for organ and tissue transplantation services launched in Abuja by the Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare, Dr. Isiaq Salako, who was represented by the Director of Hospital Services, Dr. Jimo Salaudin.
Absolutely, Victor, and I should say I was also there, so I witnessed, the launch myself. And it's not just a policy on paper. The guidelines are intended to tackle real concerns, within the area of organ and tissue transplantation, and basically is to protect patients, ensure their safety, ensure ethical standards and proper regulation among those providing the services.
Well, I hear it also emphasizes critical principles like informed consent, autonomy, beneficence, and justice. Big words. But simply put, they ensure organ transplantation is done the right way.
And absolutely, there's no doubt about that. And getting to this point wasn't really an overnight decision. There were experts who had met earlier, medical professionals from all fields, legal minds as well. We also had regulatory bodies, come together. And like I said, the media, NTA was also represented to collaborate to create a system that works. Now, we're talking about registration, licensing, monitoring, and even central database to track organ donations and transplantations.
And in a country where organ trafficking and unethical practices are real concerns, this is a game changer. Aligning Nigeria with global best practices is no small feat.
All right, speaking of groundbreaking moves, that brings us to today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria, where we spotlight this transformative step in the country's healthcare system and
that's just the first half anyway. Later, we'll be shifting gears to discuss good governance and development in Bayelsa State. It's a conversation that ties directly to national progress.
So, stay with us. We've got an insightful lineup for you. I am Claire Adelabo Abdul Razak, and it's always a pleasure to sit here and, of course, share experiences with you on the program.
And I am Victor Azo. Together, we'll keep you informed and engaged. Shortly, Chukwudi Okoli Obaja will join us for the newspaper review as usual. But first, let's hand over to Zinret Dingmun for today's top stories. Good morning, Zinret.
Good morning, Victor and Claire. And here's the morning news. President Bola Tinubu says all the major decisions he has taken in the saddle have been carried out with utmost consideration of the future generation of the country. The president said this as he inaugurated the planning committee for the National Youth Conference at the State House.
Mine is to help navigate and push and lift the heavyweight problems so I can clear the path for you to have a very great future. But it's in your hand.
President Bola Tinubu has nudged heads of subnationals and other leaders to continue to strive for a greater Nigeria desired by the citizens. And President Tinubu made the plea just as he hosted state governors, members of the Federal Executive Council, service chiefs and selected heads of agencies to an iftar, breaking of Ramadan fast. Vice President Kashim Shettima and Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, were also part of the special iftar. President Tinubu, who acknowledged the downward trend in the prices of food commodities, attributed it to the collective effort of federal government and state governments.
We work collectively hard. I thank all of you as governors. The history, we just be there. Look upon yourself as a great navigator.
And the Renewed Hope Initiative train is now in Kogi State as part of the food outreach scheme to impact on the lives of the vulnerable, an initiative spearheaded by the Office of Nigeria's First Lady to tackle hunger and poverty. Represented by wife of the Vice President, Nana Shettima, the First Lady reaffirms commitment to uplifting women and vulnerable communities across the country.
Under Renewed Hope Initiative Economic Empowerment Program, we are giving a grant of 200,000 Naira for 250 persons with disability to recapitalize their existing small businesses in the 36 states.
And in the spirit of Ramadan, Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu has extended her philanthropic efforts with a generous donation of 1,000 cartons of spaghetti to the Muslim community in Abuja. This charitable act, facilitated through the Abuja National Mosque, aims to benefit targeted beneficiaries and demonstrate empathy, kindness, and compassion.
A leader is a leader. She's a Christian. She's not the leader for the Christians. She's the leader of both Christians and Muslims, and she is setting a standard and setting a precedent that whatever religion one professes, he's a Nigerian, and a leader should take care of all.
In a daring operation, 75 individuals, men, women, and children have been successfully rescued from Sambisa Forest in Borno State. Now, this thrilling development is a result of the ongoing efforts by the Joint Task Force Northeast Operation Hadinkai.
During the recent operations, troops provided critical interventions, including child vaccination, first aid, medical care, and the distribution of food and relief materials.
We are taking them to our interim care center. We provide services like livelihood support. We provide services like counseling services.
And those are the highlights at this time. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Claire and Victor after this commercial break. Please don't go away.
I am Oluremi Tinubu, the global and national Stop TB champion. Many people have asked why I've chosen to champion the fight against a disease like tuberculosis. My reason stems from a deep personal experience. I once had a friend who unfortunately fell ill and concealed the nature of his sickness until it was too late. Eventually, after he passed, we discovered he had tuberculosis. Sadly, due to the stigma and discrimination surrounding the disease, he would not speak up or seek for help. His death was a painful reminder that we could have intervened and saved a life if only we had known earlier. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease that primarily affects the lungs, but can also impact other parts of the body. Being airborne means anyone, regardless of their social economic status, can contract it. In Nigeria, 1 person dies of TB-related illness every 7 minutes, amounting to 206 deaths every day. Globally, 1 person succumbs to TB every 25 seconds, which is a staggering 3,456 lives lost daily. These deaths are entirely preventable because TB is curable if detected and treated early. If you or someone you know has been coughing for 2 weeks or more, coughing up blood, experiencing night sweats, or losing weight drastically, it might be TB. Please visit the nearest government hospital or primary healthcare center for proper diagnosis and treatment. TB treatment is free in all government and some private health facilities. Let us also remember not to stigmatize or discriminate against TB patients or those who have been treated for TB. Individuals who have been cured of TB cannot infect others. I call on all stakeholders, especially the private sector, to join us in the fight to end TB in Nigeria. Together, we can make a difference. Remember, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. End TB by 2030. Yes, we can.
Have you heard the news? The federal government of Nigeria, through its direct benefit transfer program, has started the disbursement of 75,000 naira per household in 3 installments of 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 naira. Each recipient must have a validated national identification number, NIN, to receive the payment on behalf of their household members. To benefit, your household must be in the National Social Register of Poor and Vulnerable Households in Nigeria. The federal government's direct benefit transfer program is helping to reduce the effect of suffering while promoting financial and economic inclusion for the poor and vulnerable population in Nigeria.
Sunana Safiya Ismail, ni daga Gwagwalada Area Council a karkashin Giri. Ina da yara 7 da mijina. Sana'ana sadda itace. Akwai damuwomi da yawa, rashin kudi. Da musanta zaka ga itace zai kare, ba kudi ne zaka siya wani. An kira ni, ayi Safiya Ismail, nace yes. Come for your benefits at Angwando do Gwagwalada. Suka bani ATM din, immediately na withdraw kudi na. Amma gaskiya kudin ya zo at the right time.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in collaboration with the National Social Investment Programs Agency, National Social Safety Nets Coordinating Office, and the National Cash Transfer Office.
We're live in the open market for Apic 10X Challenge. My people, today I will show you how the power of new Apic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach.
Than bleach?
Yes, so.
Impossible.
Toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively. But Apic is thicker and sticks better, which gives 10X better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs.
Oh, wow.
You can now see that Apic is better than bleach.
No buy am.
But why?
No see say this big bull bag of rice no get the new big bull holographic seal.
Not true.
Introducing the Big Bull Holographic Seal Tape, your favorite authentic Big Bull rice, 50 kg and 25 kg. Now with holographic seal tape. This is to ensure you get the premium product from Big Bull Rice. Do not buy if the holographic seal tape is not on the bag or is broken. Big Bull Rice. Tasty rice nourished you.
With Nivea Dry Deo, you can keep moving forward in life with confidence. Nivea Dry Deo. Derma 72-hour active protection against sweat and odor with 0% alcohol to prevent irritation. Stay dry and fresh all day long. Skin is for moving forward, Nivea is for skin. Your favorite Nivea Deo, now in a smaller pack size.
The new Apic sachets. It has a thick formula
So all you need is just one sachet for your toilet bowl. It gives 10 times better cleaning and big savings too.
Wow, Helen!
Sparkling clean toilet with Harpic sachet.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the Naira. Handling the Naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the Naira. Love the Naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the Naira.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
Thank you for staying with us. Up next on the program is Newspaper Review.
All right, welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service. And I'm glad to welcome Chukwudi Okoli Uwaja to Newspaper Review segment. Chukwudi, are you glad to see me?
It's not just that I'm glad to see you. There's a particular ring and shine to you. You're so fresh. You're not yet program beaten. enjoy these few days.
You know what they say. There are times and seasons for everything. Time to rest and time for work.
This man is weather beaten. You are not yet program beaten. Enjoy the freshness.
I'm ready.
We are ready to serve
We are ready.
Just in a bit.
Good morning, Victor.
Good morning.
Newspaper Review.
Yes, let's begin. And I have the blueprint, which leads with this story. APC, Sheikh Husani to El Rufai, we aren't losing sleep. Party stronger without you. I joined SDP to provide alternative leadership. That's credited to El Rufai. Defection ill-timed. That's according to Lukman. Okay, that story continues on page 8. Just above the nameplate, 2025 UTME, JAMB registers 2,030,627 candidates, closes enrollment. That's on page 13. And below the nameplate, NOA DG charges government agencies on effective policy communication. That's on page 9. And in business, BDC operators blame Naira crash on speculative attacks. Okay, in sports, World Cup qualifiers, Super Eagles open camp Sunday for Rwanda, page 32. And just before I drop the blueprint, impeachment looms as lawmakers shun Fubara peace talk. And that story has two riders. APC gives 48-hour quit notice. House issues arrest warrant on RV Siek chair, 4 others. That's on page 8. Okay, a few more stories anyway. King Dakolo tackles Saraki over comment on Akpabio. That's in line with the Natasha story. Gunmen kill 20 farmers. Hold Ondo communities to ransom. That's on page 6. And NNPC Limited clarifies Naira crude contract report. That's on page 30. We'll leave it here and get to the Vanguard. And the Vanguard lead story reads, Rivers, APC factions at war over threat to impeach Fubara. And it has several riders. You can take a look at those. The story is on page 5. And above the nameplate, digital rights, EU, NBA, others tackle FG over misuse of cybercrime law. That's on page 9. I removed fuel subsidy to protect unborn generation. That's according to Tinubu on page 8. And PDP crisis, Supreme Court reserves judgment on Anyawu's appeal. That's on page 9. Well, let me just leave it here. Claire.
Well, you've almost taken everything.
So almost, yeah.
Oh, he's leaving it here.
I don't
after exhausting everything.
I don't know what else you want me to read from the leadership, because the leadership.
We're going to push him into politics.
Yes, but just one or two on the front page of the leadership, and it's a picture story, and this comes home to me because the picture story there is showing women carrying sand to a construction site at Kurudu in Abuja, and this comes home to me, as I said, and as the world commemorates 2025 International Women's Day. I wish that the leadership had the exact location and all that. I would have done a little more investigation. Chukwudi, you are not talking.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the women. You see, a woman isn't built for manual labor, really. This kind of excessive manual labor. Look at the size of the bowls bearing sand on their heads,
Can we have that?
You can see that it is not quite it.
Yes.
Anyway, the truth is that many households are now being looked after by women. Some of their husbands have lost their jobs a long time ago. They're either frying akara balls by the roadside and sponsoring people in tertiary institutions, eking out a living from that trade, and also supporting a husband who is not finding easy to fit into society again. It's a sad story, really.
For me, I think this just depicts the resilience of the Nigerian woman. And
you're looking at resilience?
Yes, I'm looking at the resilience. I'm looking at the the determination and the zeal to
with a load of sand.
Hard. Nigerians are hardworking people.
On physical body that is not muscular, really, not built for stress.
But our mothers in those days, used to go to the farm. And remember, some of them would carry the basket of load of yams and all sorts of tubers. Some of them will carry on their shoulders, at the back of the shoulders.
But
I'm not saying this is
that hardship has generational longevity is no justification for continued suffering. Please, a woman is not supposed to really look at her features. Everything is smooth.
What do you think is the message? That this picture
it can be interpreted any way at all. Take it to any direction.
But what's the caption?
I am saying that a woman shouldn't be this way.
Women carry sand.
Look at them. You can see they're not engaged in lively conversation. Everybody's their lips are sealed because they're concentrating on the burden on their heads. Anyhow, God will always look after women.
Okay, so let me quickly again. U.S. government ends 83% of USAID programs. And Israel cut off electricity supply to Gaza. I think that's just what I have. Victor, let's review from your papers.
All right. The River story seems to be dominant since the Supreme Court judgment.
It's going to stay dominant. Remember that those 27 lawmakers who were out in the cold all the time, they were out in the cold. They are going to try to secure their pound of flesh, get their pound of flesh and all that. But I am one of those who still tell them, dear, don't rush into impeaching Fubara. The people, I said yesterday, one of those militant leaders in those days was telling them, it's not like the Alama Siya case, when Jonathan was used to push him out and all that, all the things politicians, allege. It was a job pushing out a job. This time around, we're not going to take her because it will be a non-job, The point is this. How does it all serve the interest of the ordinary man, the man in the street? That is what the electorate is shortchanged. Our shortchange in Nigeria easily. Look at the way our elected people are defecting. When are we going to have the incidence of recall of a lawmaker just because they are not there now to push for the interest of the people who elected them? Nobody has been recalled so far. It's with impunity. They just across the carpet and all that, and nothing happens.
Because the process of recall is quite rigorous. It's cumbersome.
Nobody said...
Now, nobody even initiates these days. At least against Dino Melaye, it was initiated and it failed.
We have to deliver a message that is necessary to be delivered at any point in time. Victor, that a project will fail should not hold men back from embarking on it. Because you need to make a point.
I agree.
Okay, otherwise, they will keep riding roughshod on the electorate.
Chukwudi, let's look at another political story. El-Rufai dumps APC, joins SDP. You know, yesterday, someone said SDP may be like an SPV. Anyway,
you know,
someone said he has no political relevance. And I'm saying if someone doesn't have a political relevance and you're talking about him.
You know, when El-Rufai went to the Senate and didn't get approved as a minister, and we heard he was dropped for security reasons. Nobody told us what the security reasons were, because if there were serious security reasons, we would even push for him to get further punishment, but nobody told us anything. The other day he said, no, they just used that as a ruse. The point is that El-Rufai is a bit out there in the cold as well. Fitting into another political party is not going to be easy for him. How he plays it is going to be very interesting in the days ahead. When you're not in the PDP or APC in Nigeria, LP was garnering some, now they've all practically departed them. The man they used to get into the National Assembly, the Peter Obi. Nigerian politics is a dicey affair. You never know which way the cat jumps.
Some politicians think that his, joining the SDP would probably make it more vibrant, much more vibrant opposition. Do you think
to upstage APC and PDP? Well,
no, just
it is quite within the freedom of El-Rufai to do what he wants to do with his political life. We can only wish him well as broad-minded journalists, as the broad-minded journalists we are. I don't know whether Victor believes me.
Well, I believe you so long as you believe yourself.
All right, Chukwudi, I hear we've exhausted our time, but thank you as always.
Thanks a lot. Welcome back with all this fine shine.
Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Victor.
All right. Good Morning Nigeria returns after this break. Please don't go away.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Each ethnicity is unique, we are more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry life. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
We're live in the open market for Apic 10X Challenge. My people, today I will show you how the power of new Apic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach.
Than bleach?
Yes, so
Impossible.
toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively. But Harpic is thicker and sticks better,
Which gives 10x better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs.
Oh, wow. You can now see that Harpic is better than
The Nigeria Coat of Arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features. The black shield stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The 2 white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, peace and progress, is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Nigeria is perched on a treasure trove of solid minerals. Gold, coal, tantalum, tin, but none is more critical to our future or the world's future like lithium.
Let's talk about illegal mining operations. What is our strategy?
Welcome to Silver Oasis.
Silver Oasis, a TV series dedicated to aging and older persons in Nigeria. Be part of this series and discover the transformative programs crafted to give a new lease of life to our senior citizens, courtesy of the National Senior Citizen Center.
The National Senior Citizen Center is the oasis for the senior citizens.
For thought-provoking discussions on aging, geriatric social care, and issues that matter most to our senior citizens.
Silver Oasis.
Silver Oasis.
Silver Oasis.
Tune in to Silver Oasis on the network service of the NTA every Saturday at 10:05 p.m. Silver Oasis, improving the quality of lives of senior citizens.
All right, and this is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. To begin our first conversation, which borders on guidelines for organ and tissue transplantation in Nigeria. Here is a background report put together by correspondent Salwa Khalil Ibrahim.
In recent years, Nigeria witnessed unprecedented cases of irregularities and criminal exploitation in organ donations and transplantation.
On no account should anybody force somebody to receive organ, even if that person is sick. And on no account should anybody force anybody to donate organ.
These industry experts attribute to ineffective regulatory procedure and sanctions.
For many patients, it is a matter of life and death. But organ transplantation provides hope and the possibility of returning to a fulfilling life.
These guidelines ensure that organ donation and transplantation in Nigeria are safe, ethical, and transparent.
If there are consequences and punishments that need to be put in place, then we can count on the House of Reps to present the bill before the House and have the President to assent to it.
And like it is commonly said, where there is effective regulation, there is sanity.
Indeed, where there is effective regulation, there will be sanity. And that's what the guidelines for the organ and tissue transplantation in Nigeria is set to achieve. And let me quickly introduce our guests right here in the studio, Dr. Chris Otabo, who is the Medical Director, Alliance Hospital, Abuja. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
Victor? Okay, and sorry, yes, we have another guest, pardon me, joining us from our Benin studio in Edo State, Professor Philip Olaleye Abiodun, Professor, Consultant of Pediatrics and Gastrointestinal Diseases and Nutrition. He's also former Dean, School of Medicine, University of Benin, Chairman, National Tertiary Health Institutions Standards Committee, and of course he chaired the launch of the guidelines. So, Prof, thank you for joining us from Benin.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right, and from Benin we head to Kano to introduce our next guest. From our Kano studio, let me welcome Professor Aliyu Abdu, Consultant Nephrologist at Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, Kano, Professor of Medicine at Bayero University, Kano, and Vice President, Transplant Association of Nigeria, TAN. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me, and good morning, Nigeria.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Let me begin with Professor Philip Olaleye Abiodun, joining us from our Benin studio. Prof, once again, thank you. Let's begin with the outset. What led to this guideline? What brought about these guidelines?
Well, the National Health Act of 2014 gives the mandate to the National Tertiary Health Institutions Standards Committee to monitor, give guidelines, and ensure that organ donation and transplantation procedures are being carried out legally in this country. And since that is part of our mandate, I'm the chairman of that committee, we thought there's no doubt that where there's no rule, where there's no law, people just do what they like. So we thought it expedient that the best thing to do was to set standards and give guidelines to people who want to carry out such procedures in the country, guidelines to people who want to donate organs, guidelines to people who want to receive organs or tissues, and to encourage our people to be generous, to understand what donation is, what transplantation is all about, to ensure that this is being carried out legally in the country, to ensure that people know who want to carry out the procedure, know which qualifications they should have, the institutions that want to carry out such procedures should know what they need to have. That is just it, and to enlighten our people about what organ donation is all about and transplantation is all about.
Very much, Prof, but let me stay with you for a moment. Now, one key focus of the guidelines is ethical practice, and it talks about issues like informed consent, donor protection, and patient safety. In real terms, how will these be enforced? Especially, in a system where people may be vulnerable to exploitation.
Yes, the guidelines, in these guidelines, we have the ethical guidelines aspect, which ensures transparency, non-commercialization, no merchandise, and all that. So we're working with the state governments, with the Federal Ministry of Health, definitely. Then with stakeholders. Initially, some few months ago, we had meeting with stakeholders, which included the agencies, security agencies, the religious bodies, NAPTIP, customs, immigration, and all such other relevant stakeholders to discuss means of stopping the illegal donation, harvesting of organs, and to ensure that this procedure is carried out legally. It's not only in Nigeria. In fact, some reports show that about 10% of all organ donations and transplantations in the country, in the world, 10% are illegally done. And when we say that, it could be 1% in one country. In some other countries, it will be 20, 30%. So we need to know who does a transplantation, who is skilled to do transplantation. And then when we talk of transplantation, we're not just talking of big issues. We have liver, kidney, all those things, bone marrow, cornea, even the cornea, even the gamete transplantation that we do, that is IVF, surrogacy and all this, they all come under this purview. And so we have to let people know, you can do it, you can receive organ, and to ensure that the donor is not in any way harmed, to ensure that we don't shorten the life of any donor, and to make sure that the recipient benefits from it. But importantly, that there is no commercialization, no sale of organs. It must be with consent of the donor. And when the donor consents, he must not sell the organ. It must be out of free will, but not to make money out of it. So, and we don't want any middlemen who will be collecting organs from people and go and sell them. All these are part of the things that we are written in these guidelines that we just launched.
Thank you. I will still stay with you a bit more before we escalate our conversation to our other guests. And that's because even at the compilation of the guidelines at the initial stages, several issues, came up. There were several ideas that came up. So I just like for you to give us an insight into the very fundamental items, within this guideline, both for the donor, the nephrologist practitioner, and for the institutions. What are those basic guidelines that stand out?
Well, as I said, the first chapter, we have about 7 chapters in this booklet. The first chapter deals with ethical guidelines for organ donation and transplantation. It tells us the general principles. It tells us guidelines for practice in the hospitals involved in transplant surgery, advisory on the procedure, recommended skill sets for the laboratory setup, criteria for screening, donation, and handling of the human organs, then post-donation transplantation procedure guide and follow-up care. That is, you take an organ from somebody, that person definitely needs to be taken care of financially, not selling, but the money that it costs that person to come, to donate, to take care of him or herself after the transplantation, that one must be paid, but not for selling the organ. Then the care of the person that is being taken, that has received the organ, you have to be sure that the organ is not rejected, the drugs that will be necessary to take care of that patient. Then establishment of an organ bank in the country, a registry and an organ bank where people who have voluntarily donated their organs, where these organs can be kept and they will still be safe and can be used for other people, and to ensure that we follow certain principles, priority and first come, first serve, but also based on priority. That is where the organ will be, and that is where the purpose of the organ bank. The registry will be to know those who are carrying out this procedure, where they are all over the country, to encourage them to know the mortality, what are the consequences, what has happened to the people that received organs, and then to do some research. It will help each and every one of us to encourage us. This is how the procedure is carried out. This is the consequence. This is the result of procedure carried out in Lagos, in Abuja, in this, and then we compile this on regular basis, and we let the public and the surgeons or whoever is doing it know about it.
Thank you. We come back to the studio. Let me bring in Dr. Chris Otabo, who is the Medical Director of Alliance Hospital Abuja. Dr. Tabo, I'm just wondering, what is the burden of demand, for hospital institutions that provide these services that will make, these rules and guidelines, apart from the fact that the National Health Act, had mandated the tertiary institution to do that, what is the way that has made it mandatory?
Thank you very much for having me one more time. The burden of organ failure in Nigeria, particularly kidney failure, is quite huge. And people are dying in their numbers every day. And it's in response to that hospitals like ours decide to take up the challenge to save lives. Last week, I was walking on the corridor in the hospital and I saw a patient that we did a kidney transplant for in 2019. The man is looking hale and healthy. He flew in from the east. For that alone, I'm so fulfilled that not just him, his family, he's the breadwinner, But for every one of such, there are hundreds that are not fortunate enough, either because they are not financially buoyant or they couldn't get an organ from a willing donor, and sometimes maybe they don't even know the right place to go. So the quest to save lives is what necessitated some of us, even though the National Health Act was sketchy, it just talks about the general principle. But this committee is what we have been waiting for. And I want to commend the chairman of the committee, Professor Abiodun, for this milestone that we have achieved in the organ transplant space in Nigeria. And also particularly the Minister of State for Health, Professor Dr. Adekunle Salako, for taking the bull by the horn and setting the standard. Before now, we were doing what we knew was best based on our own ethical persuasions. And I'm happy to tell you that 95% of our own hospital guidelines are enshrined in this guideline. You would think, oh, is it telepathy or they were listening to us and all that? We were the only hospital that was requesting for a court affidavit before we can even listen to a potential donor. Go to the court and tell them your age, tell them that you are not going to collect money, tell them your relationship with the recipient and all that. Once the court has cleared you, who are we to say no? Because it's still it's a matter of the law. So, the Bible says that where there is no law, there is no sin, because sin is a transgression of the law. So every great structure and every great institutions have been carved, have been molded by laws. Even when God, in my Bible account of the creation, the Bible says at the beginning the earth was formless and void. It was a chaotic mass. God had to speak orderliness into it. So no question about the fact that one or two institutions were doing things that were not, standard. But with these guidelines coming into place, people will either fall in line or leave that space entirely.
But there was a law, Ab initio. There was
a law, the National Health Act. It was just scanty and it just speak about the general principles. But the nitty-gritty was not defined. This guideline, first of all, it talks about which hospital in the first place is qualified to undertake organ donation. You have to have an X-ray machine, you have to have a CT scan, you have to have at least 2 theaters. We have 4 theaters. If I can count the number of institutions, hospitals that have a CT scan on my fingertip. So that means that we are going to separate the pretenders from those who are really serious. You know, and I'm happy with, you know, what the committee has come up with. It's encouraging.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Tabo. The guidelines is what I think we should look much more deeply into, and I'll get to Professor Abdul for that, because there is concern, you know, about regulation and compliance. Laws have never been an issue. Rules have never been for Nigeria. It's always about implementation. So I ask Prof, are these guidelines tight enough to ensure that both medical professionals, donors, practitioners of all shades, are they tight enough to ensure compliance on all fronts?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think one good thing with this guideline is that the professionals in the field, that is the stakeholders, are involved in the generation of the guidelines. It is what they believed in and what they themselves put in place to guide their practice. Therefore, this ownership of the guideline will encourage compliance. Secondly, the committee chaired by Dr. Biodun did a very good work in sensitization. You just heard from him that they had meeting with all stakeholders in the security sector and other relevant organs of government that are responsible for implementing and guiding the implementation of these guidelines. So these are some of the things that make the guideline unique. One, the ownership by the stakeholders themselves. They feel that this thing belongs to, hear what Dr. Otabo said, when he read the guideline, it's just some 90-something% of what is in his office. And he was not there when we developed the guideline. I was lucky I was a member of the team, but we spoke the mind of professionals in the field. Therefore, this will encourage compliance. Secondly, the involvement of the security agencies and other arms of government that are relevant in this area will help in protecting the implementation of the guidelines. So these are factors that will encourage the implementation of the guidelines. So there is hope for this. It's our prayer that it won't be like any other previous attempts at regulating things in Nigeria, where it's in the book, but it's not in the practice. So this is my take on that.
Let me stay with you for a moment. You know, I asked that question because when Professor Abiodun was speaking, he talked about ensuring that people don't benefit, you know, monetarily from donating organs. And I asked, how are you going to do that? For instance, I present somebody who is purportedly going to donate organ free will. He's just a friend or is whatever it is. How are you going to ensure that behind there is not another negotiation which will ensure that he gets benefits for what he's given?
Guidelines are clear. You know, in organ donation, especially living donation, there are stages and there are multiple specialists involved. The psychologists are there, psychiatrists are there, medical social workers are there. So, and it's step by step. Like my institution, is difficult to scale through the different layers of screening to ensure that. And then the process protect the donor. At one stage, it's not only commercialization that we're afraid of, there's coercion. When there's pressure on somebody from the family or from the relative to donate. This also is another factor that we take into. But overall is the public enlightenment that the potential donor is made to be aware that he's protected at each stage of the procedure. We give him the sense of confidence to tell us the truth. And the guidelines is clear on screening donor and also screening the recipient. Whenever there's an element of coercion or commercialization, the procedure is terminated at whatever stage. And this, the most important part is the public enlightenment that I'm saying. So people should know that it's illegal to sell an organ in Nigeria. So if you are involved in illegality, you should be ready for the consequences of breaking the laws of the country. I think this will encourage the compliance.
Back to Professor Abiodun. Professor Abiodun, in some of the cases that we have read involving, kidney and organ transplantation, confusion and all that, it's usually on the part of the donor, and it borders, around the donor's certification of the donor's age, consent, from the donor's family or relatives, and of course, whether there had been any financial, exchange of money and all that. Now, is this guideline clear on how the age of the donor can be verified? Because sometimes, some of these donors can, lie. Are there, stages and processes that the institutions, can take to verify that the facts and information that the donor provides are genuine?
Well, in these guidelines, we have stated it that it's mandatory for every institution that is carrying out these procedures to have a committee, organ donation committee, that will review each case before any transplantation is carried out. And this committee, the person carrying out the procedure will not be part of that committee, to be sure that there's no bias. We have outsiders, religious bodies, other surgeons, different people, to ensure that each donation is scrutinized. And as Dr. one of us said just now, it is a commitment. So they will screen each donor to see how qualified he is, to be sure there's no money changing hands there, to be sure of the age, to be sure of everything, besides the laboratory work and all the other things that will have to be carried out anyway, that the donor matches the recipient. The illegality is very important. So each institution will have this committee, and for each procedure they will meet to make sure that the criteria are fulfilled. So I think that is important for us. And any institution carrying out this procedure will have to apply and be licensed. Each surgeon or any other person carrying out such procedure will have to apply and be licensed. And I'm happy I'm happy that our colleague even confirmed that we took all stakeholders, all those who have been doing, who are known to have been carrying out these procedures. There have been associations, transplant association and different other associations, and they were all part of it. So they all know what we have put inside and know that they have to comply. And we are still, it's an ongoing process. We are still working. We still be meeting with them. We still be meeting with the stakeholders, the religious bodies. There's no religion that is against organ transplantation. There's none. It is the body goes when you are dead. It's the soul that each religious body talks about. So the body decays. So we are not using souls. We are using the bodies. So there's no problem in that. But we continue to enlighten our people too. Even those who are willing to donate, they should know that they are not going to make money out of it. So that is very essential. So as long as all of us work together, you and I have to be part of it. As I said in an earlier speech somewhere, see something, say something. You see anybody who is playing such games, trying to lure people to buy their organs or to take their organs and go and sell them, let the security agencies know. So each and every one of us has to participate. There are more people praying, as Prof said just now. There are so many people who need organs. So we have to enlighten people. It's also part of our job to be willing to give their organs and to make sure that no harm will come to them. Their life will not be shortened because of that. That is very essential. So not just out of pity, okay, take me, let me do it for myself, I'm ready to die. We don't do that. We must ensure that there's no harm. So these are all part of the jobs which we have to do. And this document is just the first time. We shall be reviewing this regularly. And then the institutions that are carrying out the donations will be licensed and will be coming regularly to review what they are doing. That is just, those are things we need to do to ensure that transparency is there and legality.
Professor Abiodun, thank you very much. But I'd like to stay with you because there is this aspect of the guidelines that speaks to creation of a central database, for organ donations and transplants. How exactly is this going to work? And will it impact transparency and efficiency within the system?
Yeah, okay. Is it for me? Well, registry will talk of people who need organs, because when you say you need an organ, in most cases, not just today, I just say I need tomorrow. So we have a list of those who need. We have the banks where people are ready to donate. We have to make sure that all the facilities, that is where the experts are working. What do we need to store a liver, to store a kidney? How long can it be viable after storage? Whether it is also cornea and all the other things. The requirements are different for each case. So the registrar will give us a list of those who need organs. These ones will come from the states, from the institutions and all that. And we also have a list of those who are donating their organs. As I said, it might even be possible to put on their driving license, or if I die, please take this. We have the list, so we'll be compiling the list gradually, and if there's a need, just like we have blood bank. We have blood bank where we store blood with different blood groups and all that, and when you need, it's given to you, just as the need arises. So it's still a complex work. There's still a lot to do, but we are taking some few steps now.
This registry. Yeah, Prof, I'm just wondering, who will take the responsibility of managing and coordinating the registry?
Central registry, and as we work with the states, there will be state registries, but everything will be centralized in one place, so we know that. So it's going to be a responsibility of this committee, the Federal Ministry of Health, and then with the regions, the different states of the Federation. So we are working on that. As I say, we are working with the states and all the stakeholders.
Registry, how does that help in sanitizing, the process?
Okay. Maybe before then, let me just say a few words about the operationalizing the regulations and looking at the disparity between the theory and the practice. For every one organ transplant that succeeds in a center like mine, about 8 have been disqualified. And they are disqualified based on either incompatibility in terms of the blood type, or maybe because when we interview, because we have an ethics committee. As the medical director, I take ultimate responsibility for what happens in the hospital. Many times, a night before the surgery, the surgery is cancelled. Why? Because the psychiatrist reviews the patient and he finds that the patient is moody. What's happening? So we begin to dig and we discover that, oh, the benefactor of the donor is the one that is sick. And she's being muzzled, kind of, because I'm the one that have been paying your bills after all. I train your children.
Okay.
So why are you not willing to donate for me? When we find that out, we cancel the case immediately. Sometimes when we discover that money is about to exchange hands or has exchanged hands, we cancel the cases. But you cannot, that cannot be watertight. Like you said before, transactions happen behind the hospital and the recipient presents the donor like, oh, this is my niece or my nephew, and he's willing to donate. And the potential donor goes to court, swear to an affidavit that no money is exchanging hands, only for us to find out.
Money in the bank.
Only for us to find out later that money actually indeed exchange hands. You can't rule that out, especially when the potential donor is desperate and poverty is driving this. So we do our best to ensure that those things don't pass through, but you never can. It's just like if you go to the Nigerian Immigration Service, people go to court to swear an affidavit. You see a 26 years old footballer, he will swear in the court that he's 18. With that 18 years affidavit, he is going to the embassy, to the Nigerian Immigration Service, and he's getting a passport that says that he's 18 years old, because he knows that that age gives him an advantage in terms of the possibility of him signing a club in outside of the country. What happens in that arena happens everywhere, and it also happens in the transplant space. But with this, it will improve the vigilance. But I don't know how it can completely be eradicated. It's a problem that is fueled by poverty. But where we see it, we nip it in the bud and we disqualify such patients. Then concerning the registry, this is what happens abroad. There are some of the patients that fly in to have their organ transplants in Nigeria is because of waiting time. Sometimes 3 years they are still waiting. And no compatible potential donor is popping up. So, but in those advanced countries where this registry is well organized, potential donors signify their interest and they put them in the waiting list. So, and then those who are waiting for organ to receive organs are also on the waiting list. When they pop up and there's a match, they call them to say, okay, you have a donor.
In other words, you don't have to know your donor.
You don't have to.
You don't have
as
to.
long as they are compatible. So there's a system arranges that. But it's also, relatives are also encouraged. If what we do, we tell our recipients, those who have need for organs, go talk to members of your family. If there's any, because the chances of compatibility is higher amongst family members. If that works out, fine. But the organ registry would now become like a backstopper for the general public, and people can go there for those who need organ and those who are willing to donate. But it will require a lot of sensitization for people to do that willingly and without any financial motivation.
I'm just wondering, in blood donation, I know that I don't know if it is internationally accepted. We have here those you call commercial blood donors. If we are trying to curb exploitation, by setting up a organ registry, aren't we doing the same? Encouraging people to, also be exploited, are there no ethical risk involved in setting up an organ registry?
No, it has worked in countries, in other countries before. It's just that, there's corruption everywhere. In anything you do, no matter how good the intention is, corruption can come in. Even the people managing the registry, a desperate recipient, a potential recipient, can begin to even lobby them to say, please, I want to be on the list. You know, I want to be the first to get. If you have, you know, a potential donor, please contact me. Those who cannot induce people at that level can be waiting for 5 years. Why someone who is just diagnosed of organ failure, or maybe is a politically, you know, relevant figure, he can get his organ within 2 months. Meanwhile, a nobody can be waiting for 3 years or 5 years and they can't get. So these are potential drawbacks of the registry. But not to do anything is the worst. Let's start. As we get along, we would take care of the teething problem, and then this process will mature itself.
All right, Dr. Tabo, thank you. Now let me get to Professor Abdu, because beyond regulations, a major issue is access to these services. You know, organ transplantation is quite expensive, and the truth is that many Nigerians, I don't want to say most, can't simply afford it. So what are the options available, you know, to ensure that it is more accessible, more affordable to Nigerians? I know that recently there's been this talk of, you know, subsidy, but I think, is it 10 or 12 centers across the country? Considering our population, this is unlikely to scratch the surface.
Very much. Let me add a word or two on the registry. Let's just narrow down our thinking about keeping a centralized register. The registry is supposed to be robust. It should contain information about the organ transplantation in the center, the outcome of the transplant, what happened to the recipient, what happened to the donor on short-term basis and on long-term basis. Registry is supposed to be comprehensive, and it is the registry that the regulators will look at and decide what is the fate of an organ transplantation center in developed countries. There are centers that are closed down because of the records from the registry. Maybe the numbers are not enough, so government is spending a lot of money on sustaining a program that taking a lot of money and then not delivering. So centers are closed, and then patients are referred to a nearby centers. They have regional organ transplant centers. And then sometimes outcome, what is the outcome of the organ transplantation? The registry will say, you have done 10 transplants in first quarter of 2025, how many of them survived the first month, the first 6 months, the first 1 year, and so on. So the registry is robust. It contains a lot of information about the process of organ donation, and it's good to have one in Nigeria, and we have to start from somewhere. And concerning the accessibility to organ transplantation, I agree with you. Organ transplantation is a very expensive procedure, and currently in Nigeria, it's not affordable to many Nigerians. And there are a lot of options where the government, the individuals, and the communities can come in and make the process more affordable and more accessible to Nigerians. The government have started this subsidized dialysis. Is a welcome development, and I want to tell you that my center is part of the benefiting centers, and I've seen the impact. Many people that I thought to cannot afford are now able to get the service. 12,000 naira per dialysis session, which is a very good development. And I heard from the implementing committee of this subsidy that they are just beginning. It's a pilot, and they are going to expand. So I have the hope that in near future, many more centers are going to be involved. And with affordable dialysis, patients can be able to survive and reach the time when they need an organ. So I want to advise the government to start planning on organ transplant centers ahead, because with subsidized dialysis, many more kidney failure patients will survive for a longer period of time when they need kidney transplantation, for example. So if the government is thinking ahead, I can advise. So let from the federal government institutions I'm happy Professor Abiodun is here. We can identify centers of excellence in organ and tissue transplantation, for example, in each geopolitical zones of the country. And then the government should invest in those centers in terms of manpower, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of whatever is needed to boost the capacity of those centers. So if the government centers are up and doing, I'm sure people are given alternatives to private sector, like Dr. Otabo's center and others, where they charge huge amount of money. I can tell you, in my center, because it is a government center, we charge 1/3 of what Dr. Otabo is charging. You can get kidney transplant at American Teaching Hospital in less than 10 million naira. And I'm sure you cannot get it at a private center in less than 20 million naira. So these are things that government can come in and equip and provide the service in its own centers. It doesn't have to subsidize, but the mere thing that is in public center, it makes things easier and make the charges lower than the private. And the other thing is a philanthropist. There are a lot of good people in Nigeria that can assist. In fact, why the transplant procedure is expensive is because of the issues around the organ transplantation. The laboratory services, especially tissue typing, the drugs after the transplant, the surgical equipment needed. These are the things that make the procedure expensive. Let me give you an example. At Amini Kano Teaching Hospital, at one time, NNPC donated the tissue typing laboratory. So that has made the transplantation easy because the tissue typing service is made available at a government hospital at a subsidized rate. So more patients are more accessible. So this example of corporate bodies assisting in establishing center of excellence. Another thing are individual philanthropists. This can also go a long way in helping. They don't have to give money to the recipient or give money to the donor or give money to individual. But by buying and donating the essential equipment and drugs and reagents needed to facilitate the organ donation, they will now impact on the subsidy on the patient, and because the cost will be reduced. They can donate, for example, and say we're donating reagent for 20 laboratory tests, but the patient must get it at the 50% of the official rate. And the centers, the institutions will accept that because it's donation. So these are the things that we can pursue. The government should do it. The individuals, the corporate organization should come in, and the NGOs should also come in. Kidney foundations, patient associations, and so on. They cannot come in and assist and make the procedure accessible to Nigerians. Thank you.
Thank you. You said so much, and I'm sure that Dr. Tabo would respond to you when we come back to the studio. But let's bring in Professor Abiodun. Prof, I'm also wondering, because I know that this is one of the major recommendations, by your committee. That's the establishment of the National Organ Registry. But again, when you have, very delicate and sensitive organs, you also need a very robust storage capacity. Do we have that? And do we have the experts,
Say one point. Transplantation is expensive everywhere in the world, and definitely more expensive with us here. But besides the organizations, government and all that, the health insurance is also very important, and I think we have to add that to it. Now, as far as bank is concerned, it's one of the guidelines that we put here, standards that will bank organs, and it's not cheap. But we have experts in Nigeria, not many, but you've heard that some centers have been doing transplantation. So there's no doubt about that locally we have experts. But we also hope that with these guidelines and standards and encouragement, now there will be more centers. And that is why we want to register those who are doing it, so that people don't just go to fake people and go on propaganda or an advertisement that they are doing this and that. Anybody who says he wants to do it or is doing it will be accredited. So that is that. So fake people will be able to push them aside, and there's punishment for those who carry out these procedures illegally. And I also want to stress, it's not just for those who carry out the procedures illegally. The go-betweens are also going to be punished. Anybody who makes it his business to go and canvass to poor people and others to harvest their organs will be punished. Anybody who helps in transportation of such people will be punished. Anybody who allows his home or any accommodation to be used will be punished. So it's not just the institutions or the doctors that will be punished. Anybody who participates at all in any form of illegality will also be punished. So we want to appeal to, as Prof has said, different organizations to support us in setting up all that we need to make the procedures cheaper, the banking, the registry, in whatever form, to support us. I'm not going to go into the details of who now charges more for it or not, but I believe when things are well organized, standardized, the myth around the whole thing will be broken down, the cost will also go down. And if insurance companies besides government jump into it, then I believe things will move better. Thank you.
Professor Abiodun, thank you very much. I'd like to get back to Dr. Tabo, because earlier Professor Abiodun was talking about there is no religious issue, that is against organ transplantation or donation. But I'd like to ask, in your practice, have you found cultural or religious, obstacles to organ donation or transplantation?
Well, the straightforward answer is no. Unlike blood transfusion, where some religious organizations like the Jehovah's Witness, but kidney transplant particularly, there's hardly any religious or cultural debacle or obstacle. But if you are going to involve yourself with kidney transplant, at one time or the other you might require blood transfusion. So if you say I don't want blood, then we cannot take you in for kidney transplant, because post surgery you might need blood, and then that means everybody's effort is wasted. Yes, so that's that. I don't know if I can talk a little bit about costing. Okay. Costing is relative. The a transplant on the average costs £80,000 in the UK, and about $130,000 in the US. Maybe in India, maybe about $60,000, which is very cheap. £80,000 is 160 million. Here we do transplant in my center for less than 30 million, which is 1/6 of what is done there. Now, we talk in terms of competence. We fly in our surgeon.
Does that include post-care?
Yes, for the first 3 months, yes. We fly in our surgeon. Our surgeon has done over 10,000 transplants. You can't compare that cost, such with someone who is struggling with 20, 30 transplants.
Experience.
Because the more experienced the surgeon, the better the outcome. Then in terms of the medications, there's this immunosuppressant that is given. Is the life wire of transplant. We use on the average about 6 to 8 million naira for those medications alone. And transplant is 2 surgeries simultaneously at the same time with a retinue of experts. More than 30 experts are on the patient, both the donor and the recipients. You need intensive care unit for a number of days. So a lot goes into the transplant. I don't know what happens in Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital. Maybe the government is taking responsibility for some of those things. But when you look at what we are offering and the output, and then you look at the costing, you will agree with me that we are really, our pricing is fair compared to the same quality they will get when they go abroad. And that's why we have guys flying in from Germany, Nigerians who live in diaspora, from the UK, Germany, Canada, different parts of the world. They come in to do their transplant and they go back. So, I mean, that's better than they doing it there. Why are they not doing it there? Prohibitive cost.
But let's quickly look at what can be done now, to entrench these standards. What should be the next steps after this? Because we hear that all those providing the services need to be registered.
Yes, I am really very impressed with the work of this committee. And this committee is not a one-off thing. It's an ongoing process, like the Prof has said. This is just the beginning. There's a lot of work ahead of the committee. They need to sanitize the system. They need to put more structures in place. But it starts from identifying those who have the capacity to run the program. And then we streamline that. Then the legal aspect of it, we need to cross the I's and dot the T's, and not just in theory, but in practice. But so as they work with transplant centers and experts, the system, the process will evolve, and it will naturally weed off the charlatans. And again, too, Nigerians need to be properly educated, because there's a lot of myth. There was one time one Dr. Kekere was trending on the news in Jos. They said he's been harvesting kidneys. You can't have to do a transplant. It requires weeks or even months of planning. Someone can't take you into the theater and take you out and say he has taken your kidney. Where is he is he going to use it to cook? You need a donor, and it's a synchronous surgery. As you're having a donor, you also have the recipient. You cannot take a kidney out of a human being for 5 minutes without it already being in the recipient. Otherwise, that kidney is useless in your hands. But Nigerians think that you can just, corner someone into the theater, collect the kidney, and keep it in the fridge. When you see someone who needs kidney, you give it to the person. So there's a lot of misconceptions that are going on around the kidney, transplant,
So what is this thing about donor registry then?
No, the donor, the Prof explained part of it, but the bigger part of the donor registry is where people who have indicated interest to donate, either living donors or a cadaver. Some people tell you, look, they sign the forms and say, look, if I die, you can give out my kidney. Or if I become brain dead, that means there's no hope for me coming back again, but my body is still functioning. At that point, that person's information can be communicated to those who are waiting for organ. They can come for him, take out his kidney, and give to somebody else. So all those information about everybody who have indicated either that they are willing to donate even while they are alive and well, or when they become like a vegetable and they are no longer useful, please, you can take my organ. So all those ones are kept in a register. And then whenever the need arises, they would match the people, and they
I just have one last question for Prof before we sign off. Prof, all of this would require some form of tweaking, legislative tweaking, because if the Health Act does not provide for most of the nitty-gritty that you have recommended in the guidelines, how do you intend to do that? Professor Abiodun.
Remember at the launching, there was a member of the House of Rep who was there with us. He's the chairman of the Human Rights Committee of the House of Reps. He was there that day. And he said that any legislative act that we might need should be communicated to them, and they will be ready to work with us. So it's not a one-man show. Whether it is with the security agencies, whether it's with the legislative section, we are working together. And as we go along, we also see the need. Whom do we need? Is it NAPTIP? Is it immigration? They were all there at the stakeholders meeting. They are all aware of it. What we need now is sensitization and collaboration with the different agencies. And go along. So as we go along, if we see any act, for example, I think the punishment for one state now is about not less than 7 years, and the other one not less than 5 million, depending on what the gravity of the offense. But as we go along now, we see it's not enough. We work together with them, and they are ready to cooperate with us, as he said, even on that day of the launching. So we work with every group.
Olayele Abiodun, Professor, Consultant of Pediatrics and Gastrointestinal Diseases and Nutrition, former Dean, School of Medicine, University of Benin. Thank you very much for joining us from our Benin studio to discuss this very important topic. We also would like to appreciate Professor Aliyu Abdul, Consultant Nephrologist at Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, Kano. He also joined us from our Kano studio. Thank you, Professor. And back here, let's also appreciate Dr. Christopher Tabo, who is the Medical Director, Alliance Hospital here in Abuja. Thank you very much, Dr. Tabo.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Please don't go away. Good governance and development in Bayelsa State is our next stop.
The Nigerian national flag represents our country's history, culture, and identity. It was designed in 1959. The colors are Emerald Green 2.0, which represents agriculture, and Immaculate White represents unity and peace. Know how to handle our flag. Illuminate the environment or don't fly the flag overnight. Do not fly a dirty or tattered flag. Take such flag to the nearest National Orientation Agency office for proper disposal and replacement. The national flag can only be flown at half-mast on the directive of the federal government. The national flag must be flown at the same or higher height when displayed alongside other flags. Don't burn or allow the national flag to fall on the ground. Do not print, decorate, modify, or insert the coat of arms on the flag. Our national heroes are not buried with the flag. They are honored by presenting it to their next of kin during internment. Respect our national flag. Be a real Nigerian.
This message was brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
The business environment, to be honest with you, has been extremely hard on most Nigerian women's businesses. And of course, harsh for a number of reasons. There is no way you would increase or move a subsidy and increase the price of fuel that it doesn't have the counter effect. It has been very challenging for so many women. I know that a lot of them have cried in one way or the other to us to find ways of intervening. But that is not to say that it is all doom and gloom. We will still have a few percentage of women that are thriving in this economy, but we hope that we'll be able to get a larger percentage. One of the things I've seen with even our local purchases now is that people are buying more made in Nigerian options of food, of clothing, and so on and so forth than the imported. So that again is helping some of our industries thrive. Surprisingly, the telecommunications is still doing well, and the reason is very simple. A lot of people are going for online options of skills in terms of training, communications, even remote working. And so you will see that people that provide services around those areas also thrive. But I think at the end of the day, it's about partnerships, collaboration, and influencing power from especially the private sector and even the public sector. But we really need the public sector to drive a number of things, especially policies, because the public sector has the national spread above even whatever we can do in our own small way. What has happened over the years is that even the government, for example, is being pulled from different angles by all these stakeholders. We need to harness ourselves to have strategic focus areas, and we should all be moving in the same direction, not using a competitive approach, but a collaborative approach. Secondly, in collaboration, we need to move with large clusters of decision makers. Instead of, the process of reaching out to individuals is painstakingly long and it takes time. And so we need to engage these stakeholders on a larger platform. I think it's very important to identify where you can get help in your own little way. And one of the things I've realized is that when you operate in silo, it is difficult for you to lift yourself out of the situation. Identify ways you can do what you are doing in a simpler way. And if what you are doing is no more profitable, why not find out what can you do in the meantime that will help you? You need to think outside the box and then connect. What you can do is also identify people and become a cluster to provide a service that ordinarily you cannot do alone.
All right, many thanks for staying there. Now, Bayelsa State is at a significant point in its governance journey. And that's because Governor Doye Diri's administration is marking 1 year into its second term. Of course, beyond the timeline, the real story of progress is what we're about to talk about.
Absolutely, Victor. What's the real progress? What's the story? And that's the question we'll be asking. And that's, of course, the question Bayelsans have been asking over the past 1 year. We've seen major developments, I must tell you, in infrastructure, education, healthcare. But how far-reaching are these changes? And what challenges still lie ahead?
Well, today we take a critical look at governance and development in Bayelsa State. What has been achieved? What still needs work? And what does the future hold for the people?
Right. Let me welcome once again to Good Morning Nigeria for this conversation, Everada Abednego Dunn, Technical Advisor on Communication and Strategy to the Governor of Bayelsa State. And he's a high chief. Hey, sorry, you were looking at me with one eye.
I thought you would not ask that, and I would have mildly protested.
Of course, with the account. Sorry, High Chief Don Everada Abednego.
Yeah.
Now you call sir.
Yeah. Good morning, and thanks for having me.
All right, let's talk Bayelsa. What strategy has the Diri administration implemented to address, the security challenges confronting Bayelsa State? And Bayelsa is a unique place because of a lot of water and all that. How do you deal with all of those in developmental times?
It's quite enticing that you're starting by asking about the question of security. It is true, after all, that security remains the focal point for any nation that wants to thrive in development, because it's the superstructure that determines the existence of the substructures of society. It is true, therefore, that under the assured prosperity of Governor Doye Diri as Governor of Bayelsa State, we've been able to make very massive investments in security. The reason is that we want to ensure that other sectors of society thrive. Now, how have we been able to do that? It's all about investment. Now, when we talk about investment, we must know that security is not entirely the job of a state government. It's a collaboration between the federal agencies and institutions, the state government per se, and of course the citizens, who must show ownership and responsibility of the preservation of their lives and protection of lives and property. In Bayelsa State, we make it a duty as a government to ensure that every challenge security operators are having in Bayelsa State are tackled on the spot. What that implies, therefore, is that in Bayelsa State, we don't create room any opening whatsoever for lapses and lacks for security operators. Now, that's one. It implies, therefore, that we have been providing logistical support and others that we might not want to mention on national television. The second one is about weaving in those people in the neighborhoods, in the community, rural areas. How do we do that? The government continuously hold meetings, town hall meetings with the people alongside security operators and managers in the state to ensure that everyone comes to show ownership and responsibility. I tell you for free, new bridges of security have been built in Bayelsa State. The gaps do not exist anymore. The trust that security agencies have with the citizens of the state is first amongst equal in this country. And that's why we're not surprised that again and again security assessors all over the country, I keep saying it anywhere I go, and I must say it for the opting time. Here in Bayelsa State, security management is top-notch, and we are first amongst equal, and we are indeed the best, the safest state in Nigeria. The reason is because there is that ownership and responsibility. Crime is at its lowest ebb in Bayelsa State. We wish that's the situation in this country, because
but
that's
that also,
does
that also, I'm sorry, Claire, does that also include, protection of oil facilities from sabotage and, vandalism?
Of course, we must understand that Bayelsa State largely relies on oil revenue, just like the country. Therefore, everything and anything we need to do to improve crude oil production in this country must be looked at critically. In Bayelsa State, we don't compromise anything. And that's why we're asking, yes, the days, of protests, agitations, and too much of resource control arguments, of course, they are still there. But we are seeing that Nigeria is moving forward. And as a state, we do everything to work with security agencies. And most importantly, our people have seen that, breaking pipes and all of that does not change anything. Besides, it pollutes our environment and degrades everything about life. Here in Bayelsa, security is top-notch. We are number one. I will continue to be.
Hi, Chief Dunn. Okay, that's fine. So let's look at the prosperity assured of Governor Doyedire. This is, first year in his second term, and he's been driving, this prosperity. Now, this is consolidating the assured prosperity, or prosperity assured. And the prosperity assured, a critical component of it has to do with infrastructure development, sports, and I think health, if I'm not mistaken. We've heard that for the past 5 years, development has, been, restricted. I don't want to use the word restricted. Have been that the government has focused his developmental strides basically on 3 or so of this, 8 LGAs, namely Nembe, Yenagoa, and Southern Ijaw. Please, can you speak to that?
It's definitely not true at all. The reason being that we know that under the principles and the fundamentals of good governance, there must be inclusivity. It is the pattern of leadership under the in Bayelsa State leaves no one behind. Every community, every neighborhood, every local government is carried along on the basis of fairness, equity, and justice. In Bayelsa State, programs and indeed critical infrastructure are spread across board. There isn't a local government in Bayelsa State that is not having a good time under this administration. I'm an Ogbia person.
Okay, fine. Let's talk about Ogbia.
I am an Ogbia person, and a few days ago, the world plummeted in Otuoke. Otuoke is the hometown of former President Goodluck Jonathan, whom this country celebrates every day as the icon of democracy. And I tell you, what did he do? He built a road that the height is that of an electric pole from the swamps, from nowhere, and no one believed that it could be done. Now, I'm an Ogbia person. That's even my place. So when we talk about, you didn't mention Ogbia, so I'm just mentioning one. And I can tell you for free that roads are not just within Yenagoa metropolis. Roads are spread across the 3 senatorial districts of Bayelsa State. What are the 3 senatorial districts? We have Bayelsa East, which is where we come from, the Ogbia, Nebe, and Brass. We have the Kremos Agbama, which is Bayelsa West.
What is happening in Odi? Odi is in Kolokumo Okpokuma, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes,
that is the governor's local government.
Yes. So what is happening in Odi town?
Now, when you talk about Odi town, yes. I don't want to even personalize it, but I tell you that Odi has never had it so good. After its destruction, this is the time that they are having a real facelift of development. The schools have been built, health centers have been built and strengthened, some upgraded to referral centers, and the roads have been built, the schools renovated and new ones. What exactly do they want? And above all, security is top-notch in the community, which hitherto people used to say, oh, this is a crisis point.
Yes.
Very peaceful place. So when you ask about ODIA, just asking me to roll out what we've been able to do to virtually every community in the state, and it's been fantastic.
Now, what is this government doing with regards to diversifying and promoting other streams of revenue for the government? Because we keep hearing that oil will not last forever, and you have admitted that you rely heavily on oil. So if the oil dries up, should Bayelsa State be subsumed so that it can survive?
Yeah, the first thing I'd say that it's not just Bayelsa State. Nigeria indeed relies nearly solely on oil revenue, and Bayelsa State is part of Nigeria, so that's correct. How far are we thinking towards the direction of saying, let us diversify the economy so that we don't, because, you know, I don't know, we don't want that to happen any day soon. But be that as it may, for us to diversify, there are basic things that needs to be put on ground. The first thing is what we keep saying, that is our trademark, which is security. You get security right before you talk about investment, and you know, building critical infrastructure. The next thing is to ensure that there is wellness and health in the state. That's why we're making huge investments in health. Now we've been able to also key into what is called the blue economy, because the wealth of this country, and indeed the coastal areas of this land called Bayelsa State, is all about water, sea, rivulets, and streams. The wealth is under there. Do we have the capacity to bring all of that to fore? Yes, we can do it. And we also need expertise from folks from afar, which means we need to encourage investors to come to our state. For us to get that right, first is to do security, which we are saying, bragging, we've got it right. The next thing is building critical infrastructure that will take routes to the depth of the Atlantic, which is really where the depth of the wealth under the sea is. That is what we are doing. We are also saying that because we want investors to come, they are not going to come with generating plants and start burning diesel. What they're going to do is to rely on a dependable power source. And that's why the state government has just recently paid for 2 turbines, which will give us 60 megawatts of electricity. And this thing is going to be installed in a few months. In 2 months it will be delivered. It has been paid totally. And then the groundwork is being done. And the governor has assured the people, the critical stakeholders, investors who came here to do the business with us, have all assured the state that this job is going to be done by the end of this year. Bayelsa State is going to have 24/7 light. How sweet it is. What are you waiting as an investor across the globe? You're coming to Nigeria for the first time. If we are saying Bayelsa State is the safest and the roads are going to the sea, and we're talking about diversifying, why don't they come and invest in that? Not just about what is under the sea, it's also about tourism, and it makes us better. And so for Bayelsa State, the preparation for, in case the oil dries up, which we pray it doesn't, well, we are getting ready and we're moving towards.
What are the tourism potentials of Bayelsa?
Bayelsa State has a wonderful, fantastic, rich cultural heritage. If you talk about the brass people, do you remember that that's where the Akasa raid was fought? Everybody in the world, the Europeans, the Africans, the Asians, they want to come and see what happened there. There are wonderful monuments, things that will turn your head around. And look at the sea. The sea of Bayelsa State is different from any other coloration. And I will tell you also, Bayelsa State has the longest coastline you can talk about in this part of the world. And you know what? Looking so lushy. Who doesn't want to come there? Our place is fantastic. Tourism is the best. Hospitality top-notch. Because there is no place in Nigeria you go today that you talk about hospitality and you don't mention Bayelsa, and then you consider places like Calabar. Fantastic people, great people.
You know, Don, you talk about this. I also remember, I don't know what has happened to Odiogoriba, because that used to be one of, the attractions.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
And this year, I guess you're going to be there, because I will personally invite you. The Ogori Festival, because you see, when we come to manage time saying about things, sometimes a flurry of ideas. We just do, how do we pick? Do cherry picking to talk. Look at the kind of festivals we have in Bayelsa State. And we're saying this year we're bringing all of them to limelight. Look, the voice of this country.
It's not just bringing.
The voice of this country is NTA.
It is turning it into, just as you say, a great business.
Oh, because I say it is going to be part of tourism.
Because Bayelsa IGR is very low, and you depend solely on your federal allocation, which is not enough.
I agree with you completely, and that is why we are working assiduously to ensure that the basics to drive an economy are put on ground. We are not sleeping about it. Bayelsians are lucky to have a governor that is focused purely on development and providing prosperity through, concessions and ensuring transparency and frugality in management of resources, which are not enough. But even in the midst of saying, oh, the IGR is low, how do we make it high? These basics, these drivers of economy must be put on ground. And that is why Bayelsians continuously tell the governor, please do all that is needed within the ambit of law to ensure that you drive this process because it's working.
Victor asked you, what happens if the oil dries up?
Oh, and that's
because I know you have as much as 18 trillion cubic meters of gas. And you said the state governor has promised by the end of 2025, Bayelsians, not just Yenagoa, Bayelsians, or maybe all the 8 local government areas, including, of course, Kayama, would have a steady supply of light. But let's look at how you're transforming, the economy, the blue economy. You talked about before you start dredging all the long trenches to Agay. Agay, it's quite far. That's a very expensive, project. Let's look at how the state government is making ordinary fishing, which is, the trade of the Bayelsan fishing. The rivers are all polluted. I mean, most of your river beds are polluted. So fishing is not, it's not as thriving as it used to be. Because I remember in those days, you could just go to maybe Fangbe, just across, and you get, all the seafoods that you need. But it's not so today. So how is the government translating this so that the real people who are waiting for the prosperity assured would, be happy?
Yeah, I think we are largely on track. Reason being that for those of us who have been having that, slim openings to travel abroad and go to Dubai, and you don't see oil in Dubai, you don't see most of these things that we have, but they've been able to create growth and development through critical thinking. What we've been able to bring to bear in Bayelsa State is strategic thinking, and that is to see how we can apply first the principle of safety networks. When people travel to Dubai, because Dubai is safe. When investors plummet in Dubai, because there is transparency and there is predictability of the government, and they have the infrastructure, critical infrastructure that encourages people to come. Here in Bayelsa State, when you talk about the blue economy, it's not something that will come overnight. It just came to fore in this country with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu introducing it, and the first state that keyed into that is Bayelsa State. And I want to say it for free too, that the world, not just Nigerians, critical stakeholders in blue economic concept, plummeted by Bayelsa State and spent days discussing on the framework which has been developed. Now we must understand, this isn't a thing that will be done like a quick fix. It's strategic, it's procedural. Are we on track? Yes. Is the world saying we are doing the right thing?
Are you on track to expanding fishing and adding value?
That's where I'm going.
Yes.
That's where I'm going.
Yes.
We talk about fishing first. Are we feeding ourselves as a state? The answer is yes, which means one of our main occupation being fishing and farming has been top-notch because the state government has consistently encouraged farmers so that we feed ourselves. Food on the table isn't the problem for Bayelsa, but the next thing is to commercialize it. The next thing is to commercialize it. How do we commercialize it? And that's why we're talking about critical investment. The investors are ready to come to Bayelsa, but they need some fundamentals. Those fundamentals are yielding security, road network, which is critical infrastructure, power generation, so that when we get this fish, of course, the storage facility, etc., could be put in place. And are the people ready for it? With building capacity, young Bayelsans being trained in different areas of artisanship and of skill acquisition, so that when these trawlers, which investors are saying they want to start doing in Bayelsa State, we are not going to be saying the local content we do not have. Preparedness must be strategic, and that's what we're doing. And then when you talk about which other areas, we look at farming because there isn't a farmland or a soil in Nigeria that is more rich than that of Bayelsa State. In spite of the degradation of the environment by oil pollution, etc., gas flaring, Bayelsa State has been so gracious to God in all fronts. Reason being that we still plant and our crops still grow. So we are saying yes, whereas ecological problems, environmental challenges are still there. One thing is critical. Our investment in agriculture is top-notch. A few weeks ago, the Koreans came and said what they want to do is to ensure that Bayelsa State have centers where they can install these tractors and other agri equipment for agro-allied industry development in the state and, of course, within the sub-region. Are these things strategic? Of course, yes. So when we talk about short prosperity, we are also taking agriculture as a critical area. And note, in preparation of that, we keep sending our children awards to different fronts, either within Nigeria and within the
Why
West
is
Africa.
sports?
Let me say
Why
this,
is sports?
within,
We don't
within
have-
the
we don't have
within the
time to-
African
yeah.
sub-region, and we're saying we're preparing our young boys in farming skills so that when the processes take off fully, we can advance towards
I had wanted to ask what your investment in the youth is, because that's one way of diverting
Exactly.
attention
Oh.
from the vices
Yeah.
and also to secure the future.
There isn't a state. I must say most of the
But we
things
have
you
just
say-
30 seconds
Let
to
me say,
go.
very important. The state government has never looked backwards in terms of youth development and empowerment. And that is why, whereas we're providing quality education, we're also ensuring we bring in science and technology. That is one side. But the main side that takes away most of these vices from our streets and communities is because we've been able to empower you, building capacity, training them, giving them starter packs, having monitors and evaluators to manage them so that they grow. The intention is to build a new middle class, younger players of labor. And so the Bayelsa youths, wonderful. In the South-South region, states are tapping into the avalanche of opportunities and the skills that we have.
We have to let
and
you
we
go.
can't stop talking about this is the moment. And when NTA gives an
But
opportunity like this, we try to use a maximum use of
we have to stop talking now. Evarada Abednego Don, Technical Advisor on Communication and Strategy to the Governor of Bayelsa State. It's been a pleasure having you join us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Of course, this is the place to be. This is the voice of the country, and it's good to lend the voice to strengthen the growth of Bayelsa State. Thanks for having me.
All right, and that has been Good Morning Nigeria for today. We hope you join us again tomorrow for another edition. I am Victor Azu.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.